Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I am from executeautomation.com and welcome to next lecture of our Selenium with Java course. And we have been talking about TestNG in this series so far. And now we are going to talk about another feature of TestNG, which is nothing but the TestNG.xml file. So if you remember, until our last lecture, while we were discussing about creating the test and running them all from a class file using this IDE, we just used to click this over here and then it runs the test for you, right? And that's how it was all just working fine. But what if we wanted to run these tests from an command line or from one single place? What if you have like multiple different class files? For example, if you see this is the class that you have got, TestNG test. So let's say I'm just going to copy this and Control V, and I'm going to say TestNG2, something like that. And this is another test that I have got. But in here, I'm just going to be performing the exact same operation, like test B, create the employee, something like that, whatever that I have. If I wanted to run these two class files together, how should I do it? Well, you can't just go one single class file and run it again, and then go here and run it again like that, which is going to be troublesome as well. So we have a powerful feature of TestNG called as testng.xml file. So if I just open my browser over here and just go to the testng.org, you'll notice that within the testng, we have got this testng.xml file. So if I just scroll down a bit, testng documentation, this testng.xml file. So this is a file which will help you to run the code from the command line as well. So you see that we have to create a file called as testng.xml file, and this is like a skeleton structure that we need to follow along. That is the first major thing that we have to do. And you will notice that this testng.xml file has got something called a suite in the tag. And under suite, so suite is like an umbrella of multiple tests that you can have. So you can have a test in multiple different class files, and within the class file, you can have multiple different test methods to execute them. So you can decorate all of these something like this. And similarly, you will notice that every single test can have any number of class file, and any number of classes can have multiple different classes over here. So it's like an order that you need to follow along. So for instance, this is the suite that we have got. So within the suite, you can have multiple different tests, like these tests. And these tests can have multiple different classes. So you can create nested classes in Java. If you remember, we were discussing about that in the core Java concept. Exactly the same idea. You can have multiple different static classes on the same class file. And each class file can have multiple different test methods in it. So you can have this test method, and then you can have another test method, and then you can have another test method as well. So you can keep on doing that from there. And each hierarchy that you are seeing over here can all be executed one by one using this testng.xml file. So how do I create this testng.xml file, and where should we create? That is the most important thing. Well, because we are dealing everything under the test folder, it is essential that you always create the testng.xml file under this folder. So just go right click this in the new, create a file, and call this as testng.xml, something like this. So this is going to create the testng.xml file for you. And now just copy this whole structure if you wanted to, but I'm going to just copy this one line because this is the DDT or the definition of the XML file that we are going to work with. So once I add this, magically, tell you what, this IntelliJ IDE things will do things for you like you are expecting. So if you know the structure, so everything starts from suite, right? So if I just type this bracket over there, ankle bracket, it brings you up that you're going to type this, you need a suite there. So I just have to add a suite, and then you can give a name for the suite. So I'm going to say test suite, for instance. That's all. And I can just close the bracket. And you see that there is the suite coming up over here, which is great. And under suite, if I just open the ankle bracket, you see that we're going to get quite a lot of things here. Like it gets a parameter, method selectors, test, groups, listeners, package, and suite files. We are going to be needing these things later on in this series. But for the first thing, we are going to go with the test over here. And I'm going to call this test a name, and I'm going to call this as probably smoke test, for instance. I'm just going to run few tests for the smoke test, right? So I'm going to close that test. And under the smoke test, under the test tag, I can choose any one of these over here, like classes, groups, packages. So you can group based upon the packages as well. You remember we always have got a package like getting started. So if you have multiple different package of tests, you can choose those package as well while you run those tests, which is great. So I'm going to go choose the classes over here, which is what I'm going to work on. And then I need to choose the class under the classes. So classes is a plural. So you can have multiple different classes under the classes tag. And within this classes, you're going to choose one of the class, right? So I'm going to choose a class. And once I go to the name, you see that the IntelliJ IDE is very smart enough to tell me that where the class is located under your entire coding. So getting started is the package that I am working on. So if I select that, and if I hit dot, you see, it brings me both my classes, like all the classes under that package. The one which I'm looking for is the TestNG class test over here, which is great. So that is what I'm looking for. I mean, guess what? You can also do this within the class. You can also select the method if you wanted to. You can go even further deeper. So you remember we were just telling you in our last lecture that if I want to run any test in a specific order, how do I do it? You can do that this time. You can choose a method in a specific order, and then you can preserve the order in the suite so that it can always run on the specific order that you're looking for. So those things we can do it from the TestNG.xml file. Believe me, it's amazing. Well, I'm just going to execute a class. So I'm just going to close it this way over here. And I'm going to run the test and see how that works. So how do I run the TestNG.xml file? It's very easy in the IntelliJ IDE. All you have to do is just right click the TestNG.xml file. You see that we have got this run this TestNG.xml file. So if I just do select that, it is going to run the test for you from the TestNG.xml file. And it is gonna do whatever that you wanted to do. See, just opens up. And it's running the method test b create employee. You remember that is the method that we have got, and it has executed it for us, which is amazing. So it is already getting passed there. So this is the power of us to ensure that the test actually can be executed from the TestNG.xml file as well, which is amazing. So this is cool. So this is how you can see that the TestNG.xml file starts to make more sense. But what if I want to run another test that I have got, another class that I have got? So for instance, I just have to do a class name, getting started, dot, TestNG2.xml file. I can do that as well. And let's do, let's collapse the empty tag. There we go. And now if I want to run both the methods the same time, then I can just run the TestNG.xml file, and you will notice that it is going to run two tests together, and then it is just going to run them. So you'll notice that they are running a bit more, not parallel to be honest, but they are running a bit more sequence at this time, that they are trying to do this operation for us over here. You can run the test in parallel as well. That is also something possible. So you can run these test methods, tests in parallel. You see that we have got a parallel tag on the test. So you can just say parallel, and then you can say specify what you wanted to run in parallel, whether you want to run all the classes in parallel or the methods in parallel. So if I just say classes, then both these classes are going to run the tests in parallel same time. So even that is also possible, which is great. So you don't even have to necessarily write any parallel programming or something like that, because everything is going to be taken care of for you automatically using this TestNG.xml file. You see that both these tests are running in parallel this time, and earlier it was completed in like 6 seconds, if I'm not wrong, 6.8. This is completed in 4 seconds. So yeah, you got a gain there. So that is how you can see that the test can be executed in the parallel as well from the TestNG.xml file. So that is another power that you have got. I mean, we have discussed quite a lot of things here. Like we can run the test in test and then we can specify the class, and then we can specify a specific class, and then run them all over here. And that is how you can do things. But now the next thing comes in is, let's say, Karthik, you know what? I wanted to run my test with different username combination. How can I do that? So if I wanted to pass these username from an external data source, like parameter, for instance, if I wanted to do that, how can I actually do it? Well, in order for you to achieve the parameter options in TestNG.xml file, you can also do that. You can actually go here. You can go here to that suite, and you see that we have got something called as parameter. And here on the parameter, you can specify the name of the parameter. For instance, you're going to specify the username parameter, and the username is going to be admin, which is the value that you're looking for. And then you're going to create one more parameter where the name is going to be password, and the value is obviously password. So that is what is your parameter that you're looking for. So you can close this empty parameter using the control dot like that. You can collapse the empty parameter like that. So see that, that's looking great. But you got the idea, right? Like you can create these parameters here. But now the question naturally comes is, Karthik, how do I access these parameters from the TestNG.xml file into my test methods? What is the way that I have to do? Well, if you just go to TestNG.xml file over here and just search for parameter, I'm going to even show you there are ways that you can go ahead and see that. It says supports parameter. You can use the add parameters annotation to get the parameters from the parameters from the TestNG.xml file. And did they given any information? Yeah, you see that using the add parameters, you can get the names or the information that you're looking for from here. So that is how you can actually do it. So you can get the username and the password from the parameter name, and these values are going to be transformed into the method that you're looking for. So you can do that as well. So it doesn't really make any sense to you. I'll tell you what I really mean. See, this is the parameter name, username. So if you call the username parameter in the @parameter tag, you will get a value for that parameter, which is nothing but admin. Similarly, for the password parameter, you will get the value password out of it once you call the parameter with name password. So what I really mean about that is, if you just go to the TestNG.xml file, TestNG test, and just put add, and you see that now we have an annotation for parameters. And over here, I can give the name of the parameter, which is nothing but the username. And I also have got a parameter for the password, if you remember. So I'm going to get the password. So these two names I'm going to be getting out from the parameters. And then I'm going to be passing that values into the test methods parameter, which is going to be username and string as password, something like that. Now this username will have the value of the admin, and this password will have the password value, because the parameters is going to fetch those value from the XML file, which is great. So I'm going to copy this username and pass it over here. And for the password, I'm just going to say password. So now these two values are being passed from here. So let's see if that works. So I'm going to go to the TestNG.xml file. And I'm also going to do this. I'm going to also modify the other test as well, just in case, because both the tests are pretty much exactly the same, right? So I'm going to copy that, paste it here, save it, pass the username and the password. And now let's try to run the testng.xml file over here. So you will notice that this time it is going to get the value from the parameters annotation, and it will pass the value for you over there. So you see that just doing that for one of the tests, and for other tests it is still waiting to be executed, and for some reason it's still trying to get the value out, just waiting for it to happen. Oops. I don't know why it's taking so much time. Ah, that's done as well. I think it's just running behind the scene, but it took a bit of a time. So let's try to run it again. We'll see what's happening there. Yeah, there we go. You see that this time it has entered the admin and the password immediately, which is great. So all these value, the username and password is coming through from this testng.xml file. If you don't believe me, so we just modify the username and passwords a bit over here. You know what's going to happen, right? Because the login is not going to happen. So if I run this, the test will just eventually fail because the login is just going to be failing as well. So you can write the data-driven testing using the testng.xml file with this operation as well. So you can pass the parameter from here and you can bring it up. Well, I'm talking about the data-driven testing testng.xml file. I mean it a lot. I mean, there are many different ways that you can bring the data from the testng.xml file, not just from the parameter. There is something called as data sources that you can bring the data from the testng.xml file as well. And that is even more better because you can have multiple different way to bring the data from the data source in the testng.xml file. And it makes your life even more easier because that is gonna bring the data for a long types of data that you're trying to pass in. For instance, if you see in your test, you have got a create employee where you're passing quite a lot of different parameters, like a long list of parameters that you're passing in. And if I want to bring all these data from the data source, how can I actually do that in Java? What is the better way of doing it? We will be discussing about that as well in our next lecture, like how we are going to be using the testng.xml file and bringing them up and pass the data for performing data-driven testing using testng.xml file. So you'll be learning a new concept this time, like data-driven testing and how we can achieve that. But yeah, that's a good idea for you to understand how things done. But at least for now, you have got the idea of how that you can create the testng.xml file, run different tests over here and different classes, and also run them in parallel. And now you may ask, Karthik, you said us that we can create multiple different tests. You can do that as well. So you call this a smoke test and you call another test as a regression test. And for smoke test, you may just require one test to be executed, but for regression test, you may need to run all the tests. So you can just specify that as well over here. And from the command line interface that I was talking about, you can just trigger only a specific test that you want to execute, like just a smoke test you want to execute. You can just run this tag alone. And similarly for regression test, you can execute that test alone. So you can do those things as well. We'll be talking about how we can run this testng.xml from the command line in our upcoming lectures. But at least for now, you have got the idea of how we can work with an testng.xml file. And if you just go back to the documentation here, they have given quite a lot of details about the testng.xml file and how you can run them in command line interface and what are the different properties available and stuff. Yeah, but that's just going to be a bit of an information for you to understand how things work as well. So hope you got the idea of how to work with testng.xml file. In our next lecture, we'll talk about the data sources attribute of testng.xml file, one of the most important concept. And following that, we'll also learn how we can run the test from a command line interface. Catch you in the next one.